Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. I'm so glad you are here and Kelly Edwards is here, and we are going to get started. So again, thank you for joining us today. You can say hello in the chat. And again, if this chat thing is not working, please use the Q&A box because we can see you there. We would love for you to say hi and tell us where you are coming from if you so choose. We always love to see where all of us homeschoolers are all over the world. So if the chat's there, please say hello and we'll say hello back. I'd like to welcome everyone to the last of our 4 live expert sessions for World Homeschoolers Day 2023. Today's session is brought to you by 90 Minute School Day. So before we begin, I want to introduce myself in case you're not familiar with me, as well as our presenter today. So hi, everyone. My name is Camille Kirksey. I'm the founder of World Homeschoolers Day. I am a homeschool expert and mindset coach, and I've been homeschooling my 3 kids since 2013. So we've been at it for a while now. And World Homeschoolers Day is all about celebrating homeschoolers, all homeschoolers worldwide, not just in the US, worldwide, as well as raising awareness for diversity and inclusion in the homeschooling community. And Kelly Edwards is going to talk to us a little bit about that topic, her take on it, which is a very popular topic right now, but it's something that has been around forever, neurodiversity. So we're going to get into it in a second. But first, I want to introduce you to Kelly Edwards. She is the creator of the wonderful program, 90 Minute School Day, which is a lifestyle approach to education that offers a deschooling framework and a system for parents to learn how to transition away from that traditional school mindset that really gets to us and into a more self-directed learning approach. So hi, Kelly, welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Camille, and hi, everyone. I'm just thrilled to be here and I'm excited for this conversation.
Me too. This is one of the things that's near and dear to my heart. We've talked about it before, but we get to talk about it from a different perspective today. So today's topic is all about home education and neurodiversity, embracing a strength-based approach. So Kelly is going to talk about that in a minute, but before we get started, we have a question for you. We would like to know what areas are challenging when it comes to thriving in homeschooling when you have multiple kids, multiple ages, and neurodivergence. So that's a long question, but we want to know where your challenges are when it comes to all these kids in their different developmental stages and ages, and they're neurodiverse. So if you would like to let us know that, please put it either in the chat or you can put it in the Q&A section. But I'll just give my little take on it because I'm somewhat new to the world of even knowing about neurodiversity and like the term and what that looks like, because I have 2 children that have different conditions, ADHD, as well as autism and some other things. And that just knowing was a challenge. Just finding out was a challenge, seeing that oh, they are different. It's not just my curriculum choices or how much time I'm putting in, my effort. There is a difference. So for me, that was really challenging. What would you say about that, Kelly, with your kids?
Yeah, I think what you just said is correct. You know, raising children is difficult. Raising children, whether they're neurotypical or they're neurodivergent, and the difference kind of real quick for everyone, if this terminology is new for you, is just that I always think of it like a bell curve. So everybody is different. All of our brains work differently. We're all genetically different from one another, but we have a lot of similarities. And when you think of a bell curve, there's all these little points inside the bell, right? And that's neurotypical people. And our society is structured, and school and how we think of education traditionally is kind of like a top-down approach. And so it's like, I'm going to teach now, you're going to listen, and then we're going to do an activity. And that works for a lot of people, but then it really doesn't work for our neurodivergent learners. And those learners are on the outside of the bell, right? They're on this side or they're on this side. And so it's not a better than or worse than, it's just different. And when we have a neurodivergent learner, once you kind of have identified that and you've either self-diagnosed or you have a diagnosis, it can really open up the world of solutions for you, because now you can name this. It's not just that like little Johnny is deciding to cause problems. It's that little Johnny has needs that need to be addressed in a different way. And especially since a lot of this neuroscience is new since we were being raised, it's different than how we were raised. We were all sort of more traditionally parented. So it's not only like relearning how to parent because we've kind of embodied however we were parented, but now we have to kind of look at education, and that's a process, and it can be a really long one, and it can be a really hard one. And so it's really good if this is you to be able to get support. I know that for a long time I was kind of existing in the world where I couldn't quite figure out what was going on in my home. But I knew it was something, and it was out there, and I needed to figure out what it was. And so all three of my children are neurodiverse. All three of my children are not biological to one another or to me. They're all adopted. And so it kind of creates this nuance, right? Because there's trauma, there's just unknown genetics, there's these behavioral things that are coming. And what I have found and what I have learned is when we approach our children or just our fellow humans from a neurodivergent lens and kind of a strength-based lens, that works whether you're neurodivergent or neurotypical. It doesn't, the neurotypical approach doesn't work for neurodivergent people. It'll work for neurotypical people. So it's almost like, hey, everybody, let's just, as a society, switch so that this works for everyone. So I'm kind of excited to unpack that. And I think I just kind of like didn't really answer your question and took us on a different bunny trail. So
no, you did. And it really leads us in probably to your first point, but I think it's good to understand that spectrum of, you know, it's not wrong, it's not right, it just is. And so once you know that, then you are empowered to figure out how to best support that child or even yourself, because there's a lot of adults that find out that they are neurodivergent, and it is part of, you know, what you do with 90-minute school day with that deschooling process. It's not just for the kids or just for the parents, it's for everyone to kind of unpack what they're coming to the table with to see how to go forward. So yeah, let's jump right into that first point if you're ready.
Yeah. So when we're looking at schooling or learning at home, or however you want to talk about it, when we're looking at homeschooling, we really, especially if we have more than one child, we are just automatically, whether your children are neurodivergent, neurotypical, or there's a good mix there, we are automatically coming up against different individuals with different needs, first and foremost. And then they also have different agendas because they're a different person. And so they have a different idea on how today is going to operate. And it may be different from their sibling, and it may be different from yours. So you've got needs, then you've got like agendas or interests, and then you have conflict because you have other people in your home that we all don't think the same, and we all want those different things and needs, right? And so when we have conflict or things start to derail because we have our plan and they're not on board, we might be tempted to kind of like buckle down and push through it, or get everybody together and this is what we're doing. When you approach children like that, it typically doesn't work, but it really doesn't work depending on what your child's neurodivergency is. So we have to take a different approach. And that starts with regulation first and foremost. So if the kids are kind of just all on their own thing, you know, this is really a journey of self, right? From the inside out. And so we need to start noticing what is going on in our homes, and noticing, because everybody has different biological rhythms. They have their different needs. You've got your early people that are up before dawn. You might have a late sleeper. You yourself may be up before you're ready. Maybe you haven't slept well. People are hungry, or people don't want to eat, you know, all the things. And then people are in a play flow perhaps, and you want to start math. So like, we can hear it, right? And we've experienced it. So it's taking a step back and releasing the outcome for the time being. If how you're approaching your homeschool is not working, or it's fraught with fights and it's fraught with you feeling like a failure at the end of the day, it is really time to just stop what isn't working and to notice. So notice what is working. When do you feel like a success? When do you notice your children feeling like a success? And then we can do some work there. So one of the things I talk to my clients about is doing a time audit. And it's just like you would work through if you were trying to lose weight, or if you were trying to budget yourself better, you're going to start tracking what you're spending. You're going to start tracking what you're eating. And then, we think we know, and we do, but maybe we don't notice certain things. And so when we get intentional of writing things down, and it doesn't have to be super detailed, but like one thing from my own life is we noticed that at 10:30 every day last summer, our youngest was having meltdowns. And so we're like, this is a pattern. This keeps happening. Let's try to unpack this and figure out how we can set her up for success better. And for her, she has some sensory issues. And so she didn't know she was feeling hunger cues. And so she wasn't asking to eat. We had fed her earlier in the morning, but she needed to be fed again. So if we could feed her somewhere between 9 and 10, we wouldn't have that 10:30 meltdown. But again, this is like, parenting is practice, and nobody is nailing it, and we don't need to worry about performance. We just have to practice it. So noticing those patterns is super key. And then the next thing is like, I can't actually control anyone but me. And we know this, but sometimes we have to remind ourselves of this. We cannot control our children. They are independent human beings. And if we try to start controlling them by dangling a carrot or like having a negative thing, and it's this punishments or rewards, both of that is coercion. And is that how you like to be treated? I don't. I just want people to level with me and shoot me straight. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I guess, I either have a problem or I didn't think about it that way. Sure, I'll help you. Right. And we need to give our children the benefit of the doubt. Like, we need to assume competency. And if they have a behavior going on right now, let's figure out what's underneath that behavior, rather than, it's almost like we can give medication to mask symptoms, or we can actually try to understand what's going on underneath. And maybe we can fix the root cause so we don't need that medication. And this is not a conversation on medication. I'm not trying to go down there, but like, I hope everybody heard me on that one instance on medication. So that's kind of like where I think it's really important when we kind of get this help. I've got lots of kids. How do I get everybody on the same page? How do I educate everyone? And you can hear it, right? You can start to hear the snowballing, inflamed thinking of like, I can't do this. There's too many of them. They're never going to get into college. They're never going to be worth anything because they were not all sitting down doing math right now when I decided it was time to do math, right? So, that's kind of like, I think the way I would unpack that question is just like, remember that your children have needs. Remember that your children have their own ideas of what's happening today. So let's get curious on both of those. And then conflict is going to happen, but that is the beautiful opportunity that we have as parents to guide our children through like social emotional work, which is, in my opinion, the most important thing you can learn in my home. It's not necessarily the presidents of the United States, but if you know how to get along with other people and you know how to learn, you're going to be okay. And you need to know yourself. And so that's also knowing how to regulate. So I need to regulate and they need to regulate.
So many things. First of all, Kelly, let me just say you are such a homeschool mom. Like, you just get it, right? Like the worry, the like, I can't do this. There's too many. Somebody's probably hungry. That's really what's going on underneath. It might be me, right? The second breakfast. It might be me that has the attitude and everybody else. So many of the things that you said are, I'm sure, what all of us have experienced at some point, and maybe, the biggest challenge to really just recognize those patterns and figure out how we're feeling and regulate ourselves first. This emotional regulation is such a powerful approach, but it's so antithetical to how most of us grew up. It's like, how I can't help how I feel, but you can help how you respond. But it's that gap in between is so hard to build a bridge.
And we screw it up. Like, I screwed it up yesterday. I like channeled like this inner person, the momster that lives inside of me. And it's just like, we got to get to the dentist and this needs to happen now, So I screwed up yesterday and I apologized to my kids and I talked through it. I talked to my husband about it, like, we're not going to nail it perfectly. And if that's our expectation, we're going to fail before we wake up in the morning. Like,
Absolutely.
we can just learn from when we don't nail it, and then we can improve. And I know that I have improved a great deal, and I'm sure that you've got the same story, right? Once we kind of come to this realization that we need to switch our mindsets, switch tactics, it works better. It's not a perfect formula because we're not perfect.
No. And we teach this. It's not like, we're sitting up here telling you, we're practicing and showing you.
Trenches.
Yeah, we're right there. We're right there. And just being honest about it and being able to say, hey, I'm not sure how to approach it. And that gives you that opportunity to say, well, let's dig into it. Let's figure out. So, anyone that's watching, if you want to just share some of the things that resonated with you with Kelly's first point, I'm going to share a few things, additional things that really stood out for me. I loved how you said parenting is practice. And we just were talking about that. And I always say, homeschooling is an extension of parenting. Everyone wants to separate everything. And it's really not. It's all about practicing those same things that we're trying to teach our kids. We have to do ourselves, modeling it and learning from our mistakes. And it's all about practicing. We don't expect kids to get stuff right the first time. So why would we expect, or the third, fourth, fifth time, why would we expect that from ourselves? Being realistic about that is so important. And then noticing what's going on. These are the things, the three things I think are so important. Noticing what's going on, releasing outcomes, because when you get attached to those outcomes, that ego sets in and you feel justified and it's not a good day. And then the last thing was notice what's working. I think a lot of times we get so focused on what doesn't work, but there's so much that does work. And when you pay attention, then you can see what can be better and what's really doing well. So I love that. I love all those. So let's move into our next question for the audience, and we can discuss. And again, anyone that's watching, you can talk to us in either the chat or the Q&A. I'm not sure what you guys see, but either one we can both see and we can talk to you back. Why might it be hard to always support your child's focus, engagement, and task completion? So why is it hard to get on board with their program?
I know. Why won't they do their math? Why won't they read to me? They read just fine yesterday. I know they can do it. Why don't we just get this done so we can check it off and we can get back to what's fun, right? And then you just heard it. I hope everyone just heard what just happened there, because by what we're putting our focus on is where the value is. And we just devalued learning, and our kids pick up on that. And so if we don't value it ourselves and we're not excited about it, and we don't really see the value, except that it's like, this is my good homeschool mommy list that I need to check off today. And if you don't read, then that impacts, like you said, ego, right? It impacts like my performance. And then like, I've got problems. So we all need to do this because this is otherwise you're just going to fail at life. And then I failed you. And then
right there.
And it's this fear thinking that is societal, right? And it's cultural. And we live in such a performance-based culture here in the United States and in Western culture in general. And it's unhealthy. And so why are we so fixated on this outcome? It kind of ties back to the rest. But the reason that our kids are pushing back, especially our neurodivergent kids, because they just don't put up with a whole lot of BS. That's just how they roll. They're very honest. They usually they don't want to comply. They want to be honest. And that's where hope lies, is when we are honest, there's hope there. And it's when we're not honest with ourselves and we're not honest with others that problems arise. So they struggle for the same reasons you or I struggle, right? Is what's happening to routine. Are you doing the same thing over and over again, asking them to read whatever it is in the same way that's boring you and boring them, right? And neurodivergent kids need novelty more than others, because sometimes, especially in ADHD, their brain doesn't actually make enough dopamine. So they're really seeking it. So there's just chemical things going on. Another thing is like, maybe they don't see the meaning or relevance, because to them, it's been presented as a checklist. We have to get this done so we can get on with the rest of our lives. That doesn't make me want to do it. Like, what is the meaning? I need to understand the why behind it. Maybe it's like, I interrupted them from what they were finding meaning in, an interest of theirs, to get onto something that is more important and that has more value. And so then I just devalued their interest, which sort of devalues them. And now I don't really want to work with you. So it kind of is it's the same things. Like if it helps to think about things as if, would this approach work for me? Would I appreciate this from like my spouse, my friend, my boss? And if that's not how you want to be approached, then we really need to think about it. It's that whole, like, let's do unto others how we want to be done to us, right? And so sometimes it's just too much. Like you and I were talking earlier about, like, today has been like kind of a long day, and both you and I needed a nap. And so we took the nap. And sometimes our kids are just like, yeah, I know I can do this, but I'm not feeling it right now. And they don't have the language and the life experience to be able to articulate, I'm tired, I need a nap. Depending on where they are developmentally, biologically, or where they are emotionally in their state, or they just aren't as aware. And so that's more goes back to that noticing, where we can kind of get to our kids. So what we do here is we focus on our strengths. So again, it goes back to taking a break, recognize what does work really well in your homeschool, recognize what your children are naturally doing. So if you just interrupted your learner from Lego, maybe we just need to let them play with Lego and watch them and notice that Lego is really cool. And you can, there's a lot of math there. There's a lot of construction. There's a lot of storytelling. There's a lot of fine motor work that's writing. And so maybe today, Lego is okay for any of those subjects if we need to, like, if we still have that subject mentality. And we allow that child to continue, and maybe we join them or we negotiate with them, like, hey, I would like to sit down and do math with you today. After you're done with Lego, can we sit with a workbook, or would you rather play cards? You know, and just having like a bucket of alternatives in your head that will constitute what you're trying to pass down to this child, but there's meaning behind it, there's connection with it. And then there's autonomy, because that child's going to respect having choice. And so we can just kind of plan differently. Like, we don't necessarily need this really rigid approach of checked boxes, especially with our out of the box kids.
Yes. Yes. So much of this really is about our mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the kids.
Yes.
They
so
are.
School day is for the parent. It is not
Yeah.
for the kids.
That's exactly what my program is about too, my course. Because, you know, as you do this work on your personal journey, as well as you start helping people through it, you see that pattern. You notice the same thing you're saying. You notice you are like, okay, let me not be attached to what I want. Let me just address what's going on. And then let me see what I am good at. So, you know, it's so funny how when we start talking about this, it always comes back to us. It always comes back to us. And that can be really scary because depending on your journey here, it could be a lot of trauma behind that and a lot of things you don't think you should have to deal with. But, you know, with homeschooling, it's going to come up because your kids are going to bring it up. And that's a good thing. So it's always good to have these kind of conversations. I just want to share. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I was just going to say another thing about neurodivergent kids, like, you know, I'm probably undiagnosed neurodivergent. And that one thing I wanted to mention, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, but I think is important because what you just said kind of almost overwhelmed me. If I'm new to homeschooling and I really struggled this year, I'm like, okay, like, but I'm in the thick of it and I don't even know where to start. And if you're ADHD, then you just got super overwhelmed and you're shutting down, or if you've got some trauma or whatever it is. And so it's about, like, so many moms that I've worked with over the years, I'm sure it's the same for you. They get the diagnosis for their child because they can see it clearer in another person. And then they're like, wait. And then, you know, the diagnosis is helpful because it's not to label ourselves and put ourselves in a box, but it's to help us understand ourselves better. And in that understanding, there's a lot of healing that happens because it's like, oh, when I was told as a child that I was too much, when I was told as a child that I was wrong, I wasn't actually wrong. I was advocating for justice because I saw an injustice, and no one bothered to really get down to what I saw and what I thought, because all they were looking at was the behavior. And, that's some work for us to work through, give ourselves self-compassion, and then notice we don't want to repeat that because it didn't work for us. And we want to be able to do something different for our kids. But you knee-jerk reaction parent how you experienced the world before you kind of like came to this awakening. And so, that's where coaching is like really helpful. So call Camille, call me.
Yeah, and I think people really feel validated, whether they get a diagnosis or not. Just being able to say, the things that I felt weren't just me being bad or me, not staying in a child's place. It was, I'm a person and I have these feelings, and I may not be able to express it, but now I can, and I can help my kids do the same. Because like you said, it's so much easier to see these things in other people than it is to see it in yourself. So, but that's a great gateway into that healing journey that kind of just happens when you start this homeschool process, and that's one of the things I think you and I are really pushing. I don't know if it's very intentional, but I think it comes through that, the not knowing, the doubt, I don't know what I'm doing is the normal. Like everybody feels that, but especially if you are neurodivergent or you have children with different kind of needs that you find aren't typical. It's that camaraderie to say there are people that get it and this is normal. And if we're doing Lego today, that still counts.
Yes.
It all counts.
So valuable.
It's all valuable. And actually, I loved what you said about devaluing never works. No matter if it's, to your kids or to yourself, it never works. It's never going to get the outcome that you want. So you want to, empower yourself, empower your kids to do these things. And the other thing that you said was that's something I'm big on. And my kids really, really taught this to me, was to give a choice. Yes. So, I know what my ultimate goal is. I know what their ultimate goal is. Let's negotiate and see, hey, can we trade maybe this amount of minutes for this amount of minutes of what you want to do? Or, can we do this, like you said, the workbook, or do you want to play cards? And all these different alternatives can be so overwhelming because you're like, I don't know what that is. Like, that's not learning to me. But when you get into it, you not only have a good time, but you see that the kids do learn.
Yeah.
But
and conversation comes up, and the kids make the connections because they have these amazing little computers in their head that aren't like all aged and stressed out yet.
Right.
And so they like make these connections, and then you learn along with your kids because they just came to a moment and a light bulb moment. And that's what's cool about homeschooling is it's a journey of self, and we get to partner with our kids, but then we're along for these moments where we see that light bulb come on. And then by interacting and connecting with our kids, when we keep the relationship at the center of our homeschool, we're able to support them in this strengths-based approach because we know them and we validate them. And we're not invalidating them because we're so concerned about the curriculum masters that we bought and we spent a lot of money on. And now we have all this curriculum hanging out in our house and we're like, I need to go to a curriculum sale and unload this on the next poor homeschool mom. We should all like meet and really burn it, but what I mean?
That's a whole nother conversation. Yes.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. I'm going off on the thing, but so I'm seeing that we've got some comments, but I just wanted to say one more thing about like, my story is I took my child out of school because school was not able to meet her and her needs. And this is like one of the common things in homeschooling. We have pulled our kids from the traditional school system, not because we always wanted to homeschool and we've got some sort of faith-based or political reason to homeschool. We might just be homeschooling because the school system was just not able to support our learner. And that means you probably have a neurodivergent learner because the traditional model was not working for your different learner. And then you bring them home and you probably only went to a traditional school. And so that's all you know. And so you've sat them down with the curriculum. This is my whole story. And then you're like, let me take out my teacher pen. Let me get out my grade book. And this is not done right. And you need to redo it or you're never learn. Nope, I'm not going to spell that word for you. You need to look it up, and it's all this added friction that if you gave me that so that I could send out my newsletter to my mailing list and I had to look up every word and there was no spell check and everything, I would give up. I would just give up. And that's what we're doing to our kids without realizing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we sit and we listen to others talk about it, we probably see it a little bit more than because you're in the trenches. It's the everyday type of stuff. Yeah, you don't just have, school to do, excuse me, quote unquote, but you have home to run, you have your own stuff going on, and who knows what else. So yeah, it's important to really recognize, like, it's okay. We're okay. And let's start from that space.
Yeah.
Let's see about the comment. Let's see. Often this person feels lonely when so much of the homeschooling world seems oriented to neurotypical families. Absolutely. It's just so different for us. I end up feeling more stressed just saying. And this is why we're having these conversations. This is why Kelly and I, specifically found that we have this in common. And that's something we definitely want to continue to bring to the forefront, because I would wager that there are way more neurodivergent families than they realize. And we need to realize that, like you were saying in your first point about, there's a spectrum, but the things that work for neurodiverse families and kids and just adults work for everybody, because it's inclusive, and it's not trying to teach to everybody, it's teaching to that person.
Yes, so, because it's individual, and we can get there with all of our kids, with all of our needs. It comes with having a rhythm. It comes with having a system, which, that's what I do. And I know that you have what you do also. And it's learning it's learning from moms like you and I, who have already done it the way that you're probably doing it now. And right. we're in recovery.
Yes.
This is a recovery group.
Yes.
So we're reaching back, because I know, Camille, you and I have been homeschooling for a lot longer. And when we started, there wasn't all of the options, and there weren't as many homeschoolers, and there weren't as many diverse in-person groups. So that when I started homeschooling, the in-person community and the people that I knew locally that I could go look at what they were doing and visit their homeschool, because that's what you do, I was like, yeah, this is not working. This doesn't work. And I tried it, and I kept trying it because I felt like something was wrong with me, that this was obviously working for this mom. Well, who knows if it was or wasn't.
Right. Okay. Okay. There is a difference. It's what you show versus what actually works.
Yeah. Yes. Let's not lockstep with dysfunction, and let's get honest. Like I said earlier, with that hope, hope comes from honesty. And you and I are being very honest right now with our stories and our own junk. I got junk. Mm-hmm. I didn't do it right, but now I know that there's no right way. The right way is what affirms my children and gives them a sense of belonging. The right way for my family is going to look different than the right way for your family. So let's throw out this judgmental language, and let's look at what is going, and that's where strengths come in, because I'm equipped with what my kids need. And Camille, you are equipped for what your children need, and we have different children, and our children are equipped naturally with what they need to learn. And so one of my daughters was reading at 5, and another one wasn't reading independently until this time last year. And once I removed the shame and the judgment and the outcomes and the expectation, and I just learned how to answer people, my family or just people on the street, they're not really coming from a bad place. They're just she's not reading yet. Is everything okay? They're not judging us. It feels like they are. They're actually just noticing. And, it's doing that work to kind of get through all that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, especially when you're doing it, feels like under a microscope, even if you're the person putting yourself under there, it can be tough.
In our head.
Yeah, but it's about us and our mindset, and having these kind of conversations is always helpful. And Crystal, my friend Crystal, she says that what we're talking about is her story. And I know her personally. She's actually one of my students. So I know the journey that you come from, this space that most people come from, this traditional way of thinking about learning and schooling and what it looks like and what it feels like, and knowing you want something different, but not knowing how to make that transition. And what I love about what you talk about, and it kind of overlaps with me, is coming from that empowered approach. You want to, affirm, and really, that's how you build that confidence. People are always worried about, I don't know, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing, but you're doing it every day, and you're doing a lot of things right. So let's focus on that, and go from there and follow that feeling more so than those thoughts that run through your head.
Yes, that right there is key, is understanding our emotions, then understanding our feelings, because they're two different things, and how those lead to our thoughts, and how our thoughts control our actions. And that is what the results come from. So if the results aren't what you want, and you're not leaving each day feeling secure in homeschooling, that's it. That's really good information for you, because now you know something. You know that this that happened today isn't working.
Right.
So that's good news. And that just kind of like feels different when you look at it that way. Like, oh, okay, now I know that doesn't work. Yay. Now I need to find out what does work. And we can, of course, talk about that. I know you have other questions.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I say we don't fail. There's no such thing as failure, because it's like, well, that didn't work. What else? What's next?
Yeah, we got to get rid of this binary black and white thinking, pardon any kind of fun with our diversity thing here. But like, it's seriously like right or wrong. We're doing it good or bad. We're doing it, you know, like we got to get rid of that. It's nuanced. We live in the gray.
Yes. Yes, we do. I love that, especially with neurodivergent children. That's all. That's all there is. There is
lots of shades of gray, but that's something else too.
Yeah, because what works right now may not work tomorrow, and that's okay. We're just gonna move forward. Yeah, Krista, I see you there. We're great. I'm grateful for my students, because everyone teaches me so much more. I know you could probably say the same, Kelly, because everyone has a different perspective, and when you're open to that, there's so much learning that takes place. So let's get into our last question here. For the audience, as well as we can talk about it as well. What's your experience with co-regulation exercises? Ooh, if you found a strategy that works for you or your children, please share it. So if you have some tips, drop them in the chat.
Yes, everybody drop what's working for you in the chat, because it's so helpful for us to, and we'll read them. But it's so helpful to hear from other parents what works, because that's really what we're doing here, is we're sharing from our experience. Because you and I coach homeschool moms, we can not only share from our experience, but we can share from all of the families that we've worked with and what has worked for them. So my bank and your bank is a little bit deeper than just someone who is homeschooling their children and not coaching other homeschool moms. I just want to like make that distinction, because again, we're in the trenches with everyone. But to answer your question, what really works for me is, this is a book I read really early on in my parenting journey. It's called The Whole-Brained Child. Have you read that?
Oh yes, that's on my list of must reads.
Yeah, so it's by Dr. Dan Siegel, and it's been out for a while. And he has, you can Google it. It's called the hand model of the brain. And so all children are curious. All children like information, and especially neurodivergent ones, because the neurodivergent kids won't take it just at, oh, well, that's just the way we do it. They're like, I need to know why you want me to do that. I need to know the why. And so so that's a strength. They are critical thinkers. They are wanting more information than just put your shoes on. Why? Well, because we're going to the dentist. Why do I have to wear shoes? Because they won't let us in if we don't have shoes on. Well, I don't want to wear shoes. I'm like, okay, well, let's carry the shoes. So I carry the shoes. So here they are. If you'd like to figure out how to get my kid to put them on their feet, that's on you. But I got the shoes, so we have them. But whatever, kind of getting off point. But for me, like where things shifted, in addition to everything we've talked about, was when you understand the brain states of where you are in your brain state, and then where your child is in their brain state, and where the other children in the home are in their brain states. You have enough information that you can start to shift things. And it's a practice. Everything is a practice, because this is where the real hard work comes in. And so what we do is, so this is Dan Siegel's. So if everybody can like close their hand right now and just do kind of what I'm doing here. This looks like, trying to figure out how to hold it so you guys can see. So maybe I should do this hand. Okay, so this is like the brain, right? So if you think about this is the brain stem going down your spine. This is kind of more of the brain stem area. This is your midbrain. It goes all the way across the middle of your brain. And then you have this part is the neocortex. And so a little bit of brain science for everyone. Like this is our frontal lobe is up here. This is our executive functioning. This is where language lives. This is sensory, all this stuff up here. So when our brain is fully connected like this, we're asking questions like, why do I need to put my shoes on? Why is the sky blue? What are you doing? Can I help? So those are All of that is giving you information to know that your child has their brain fully integrated and they're asking questions. They want to learn. They're ready to learn and they're regulated. So you're good to go. Now, if you've just said, hey, it's time for math, and I've kind of added this part. So I wiggled, and my kids like to wiggle because I teach this to my kids. So once they start whining, like we all hate that whining, right? Sets us off. We've now descended with them. So everybody's brains are like doing this. And when they're whining or they're using, or we're using the always never language, or you're never going to get into college if you don't do this math question, or they're like, I don't want to do this. And the shaming and the blaming and the kind of like extreme language, whining, or they're just getting emotional. Maybe it's not even words. They're just getting more emotional. Like my 5-year-old, she starts to moan and we know she is descending in her brain states, but she's still here. And so when you're in your midbrain, you can still come up or you're going to go down with this emotionality. And so this is key for us to understand. Okay, where are we? Our kid's whining. So now we might be also in this brain state that's kind of wiggling. And if we go down because maybe we say, you need to be quiet. That kid is like, boom, fight or flight, I'm done. And they can't access like higher level thinking at this point. And so they flipped their lid. So their brain is not connected at this point, and you've got to get them regulated before you can get anything productive done again. And at this point, they've probably started to like melt down on the floor. And so now you're dysregulated. So the first thing you need to do is you need to just make sure everyone is safe. Establish safety for yourself and for your child. It's just like triage in the hospital. And then you need to figure out how in the heck am I going to get myself back integrated? Because I've secured safety, but now I need to work on me. And I need to get myself kind of squared away. And then once I get myself squared away, because I'm an adult and I've done lots of practice and work, I can now be the calm that my child needs. And so I can help them move up their brain states. And we know our children, right? Some of us have children that need a hug. Some of us have children that don't want to be touched. They don't even want us nearby. They're going to throw stuff at us. And like, don't descend back down when you've gotten yourself regulated by trying to discipline that right now. It's okay it's not okay that they're throwing things. But it's okay for you to not deal with that now. You can deal with that later once they're regulated, because they're not going to learn in this state anyways. They have to have a closed brain to be able to make that connection. So your job right now is to keep everybody safe and get them back to an integrated brain. And so you can do things like moving. You can do things with redirects. You can start inviting them to jump with you. In my house, like if I notice that we're all kind of getting cranky at each other, we do a pillow fight because it gives us good sensory input. We're kind of angry at each other. It feels kind of good because you're hitting people with pillows, but it's safe. So that's something that we do. I just like blare Pat Benatar on Alexa and we get pillows. And by the time we're done, we're laughing and everybody is integrated. Right. And then we can sit down and have a conversation. And this takes a lot of work. Like this is exhausting. So don't worry about math right now. If you're in burnout with school and you've had a hard year, like make it easy for yourself and do this noticing work, notice these patterns, write down what's going on and work at regulation strategies. If you do that, you're going to have an entirely different experience in learning with your kids that's relationship centered versus trying to go about it like top down, like, no, Matt, we're going to learn math and hopefully everybody's going to stay regulated. Another way to talk about this is to talk about it like stoplights. So like the upper part of the brain is the green light, right? So it's green means go, we're ready to learn. If they're getting emotional with the emotional language, it's yellow light. And so it's warning, like we need to go back up to green with co-regulation strategies before we go to red. Otherwise, if we get in the red, it's fight or flight. And with our neurodivergent kids, like it can get violent. I've got one of these. It's very violent. She got dysregulated today and threw something really heavy at her sister's temple. Like this is my life. And I'm more practiced in this area and it still happens. Like these are kids that are going to do these things. And your job is to equip them and empower them and help them assert themselves and know how to do this. That's why you teach them this as you practice it. And then I just give lots of really good language. Like I'm feeling dysregulated right now. And it's not shaming language. It's not like I'm angry at you. I'm dysregulated right now. I'm feeling hot in my body and I'm feeling tight. can everybody give me a little bit of space? Because I don't want to be touched when I'm dysregulated. That's just how I roll. And they're like, oh, because we've talked about this. Like, that's how they can help me out. And like, our kids aren't out to get us. And we're not really out to get our kids. And so we can extend each other this if we're in a better place. So that's kind of a lot of information. I'm happy to take questions, but
Yeah, but that, I think it's all good stuff. And I think if you're already in this space of either being a neurodivergent person or having kids that, whether you have a diagnosis or not, I think all of this is so helpful because it's familiar. It doesn't feel like, oh, I have no clue what that looks like. It's probably your everyday. So I think, it was a lot of good points. And I want to read what Crystal shared here about something she does with her boys. She says, my boys and I hug and say affirmations. I check in to see if they want to talk about things or if they just need a break or some quiet time. I do yoga, breath work, and journaling to help get my mindset prepared for the day. That is so I love, first of all, I just know your journey, Crystal. So this is just to see this and knowing this is not an act. A lot of what we see online can be very woo-woo, like, oh yeah, I get up and I do all these things and everything flows, when that's probably not normal for anyone.
They're not telling you, they're not being completely honest.
No, it's not.
As they pass out hope. Their hope is not honest.
No, I mean, it may feel good, but it's not complete, especially if you're a real parent, what's going on. So yeah, I love all those things. Those are very attainable things too, Crystal. It's not something you have to go out and buy and do. It's just something you can start practicing. Absolutely. I love that. I read the book, The Whole Brain Child, and I really loved it, but I don't think I learned about that. So that was a good visual. And this is probably my neurodivergent brain. The visuals always help me connect things. And what you were saying, kind of gave me a different visual. You were saying basically, like, if you come from a relationship-centered, heart-centered place first, then you can access your brain. So I kind of pictured in my mind, if I start with the heart first, checking in there, and then move up to the brain afterward, it's probably going to connect better than if I start with my brain first and then go to the heart. Because by that time, they're not trying to hear your heartfelt messages. They're done.
Right. And that's actually how we like came together as humans too, right? Like when your child was born, that left side of their brain that like gets into like more logic and reasoning and the language is not online, but the right side is. And the right side is where like the intention and neurodivergent kids, really, I've got a PDA'er. And so she's like this super, like seeker of your energy. And so if my energy is off at all, that alone can send her into fight or flight, or if it's an energy from one of my other children. And so depending on where she is, like regulation is cumulative. So it builds. So you can actually have a lot of bandwidth as a parent, which Crystal gave a great example of, like how she spends time each day working on herself to stay centered or regulated so that she can take the hits in that kind of bank account, if you will. But if she's running on E, or, we all get there, like we all go through burnout. It's just, again, information like, oh, I'm in burnout. I need to put in my strategies from my toolkit that I've assembled on how to build back up my bandwidth to take the hits so that I can regulate quicker when I get dysregulated, because you're going to get dysregulated. Like, it's life. Even if you don't have kids, you get dysregulated with your boss and your spouse and your friend, It's about knowing yourself and helping yourself through those hits, and then teaching your kids, like, hey, this person in our home is really dysregulated today and she needs space. We're going to give her space, and we're not going to put a whole lot on her today because she needs a break. And then when I ask for a break, she's willing to give me that break, because I'm like, I'm metered out. Like, I can't take any more requests. You're going to just have to fix yourself a snack. You're on your own. Like, I'm off limits for the next hour. Because I'm going to lose it.
Yeah. And that's true. And, it reminds me of like when you're on an airplane, you put your mask on first.
Mhm.
and then you go and help others. You can't, it's all these cliches, you can't pour from an empty cup and all those things. I mean, I love the visual of those things because you take care of yourself first. You're making sure you're good before
Right.
you give, because you can't
Right.
give if you don't have.
Right.
And it's
And our
also,
kids need to learn that, we
I
don't
was
want
just
them
gonna
going
say,
off in the world being these people pleasers who just wear themselves out, and they get themselves with these mental diagnoses because they've burned themselves out for so long. And when we're young, we can take more hits. And so, like I'm of a certain age, and like I have to treat myself a little better because my body and my brain and my emotions and my hormones aren't giving me a whole lot of extra gifts. So that's where wisdom comes in, right? Like
yeah.
learned experience and wisdom and practice.
Yeah. And I like what you were saying about how you explain it to the kids. It's not just in that moment of everything is going crazy. It's that heart-centered approach where we're going to deal with the feelings and the emotions in a heart-centered way. And then we're going to talk about it. Of course, we're talking about it all along, but also come back. One of my kids with ADHD, that's a lot. It's a lot, and once you know that, it's like, okay, it's information, but it's also teaching the other kids to understand this is not a purposeful thing. This is not an intentional, like, I'm going to mess up because I want to be a problem. This is how this person is, learning and growing, and it builds empathy in that other, those other kids. And I think empathy is something humans could be better at, because we are because of that performance-based societal approach that we have. Everything is either you win or you lose.
Right.
And it's like,
Good
it
or
doesn't
bad.
have to be that way.
Fail or success.
And nothing's really like that. So
no. And in fact, failure, I think it's crazy. Like, we grade kids, and here I was, a homeschool mom who graded my kids. So like, please know that's part of my story. But like, when I think about it, and when I actually started questioning these limiting beliefs that we hold, that we don't realize we've just kind of adopted somewhere, and maybe we don't actually believe in them, is like grading a child and telling them this was A-level work, and you failed. And then we don't celebrate the failure, or we don't question, or we don't help that child understand why they failed. We just are like, you need to pull your grades up. You need to study harder. And it's like, well, maybe there's something going on here. So like, failure is a great teacher. And when you just were talking about ADHD, I have an ADHD or two. And one thing about ADHD, it's so amazing, is what brilliant problem solvers they are. And they are brainstorming all day long with all the ideas, which can kind of get to be a lot. But it's also like, hey, empower that, like, harness that problem solving, because they're the ones that are going to be the ones giving you alternatives to do. And then you're rewarding that by like, I don't want to do math. Can I play cards? Because they've learned this. Yeah, we can play cards. And then they teach you a new card game, and you guys have a great time. Like, cards were happening in my house today. Can you tell?
Yeah.
But like, that is where learning about your child's suspected neurodivergence or diagnosed neurodivergence, it doesn't matter. When you learn your child by noticing them, you learn their strengths, and then you help them. It's like homeopathy, right? Like, if you take a little tincture of the poison, it's what heals you. And so your strengths in ADHD, you're not hyperactive, baby girl. You're full of energy and a zest for life. And you know how to do some crazy stuff with your body because you are constantly exercising it, and you are so strong. And yeah, she's probably not going to have a desk job, and that's okay. She's going to be out there using that amazingly strong, tuned up body because she's moving all the time, and she needs to move to process. Like, she was hanging up the tree, like doing some crazy mental math the other day because she's hanging upside down. And when I first started homeschooling, like, I needed them to sit down because I couldn't take all the movement, and I wasn't sure they were learning, and it's a control thing, right? And really, I'm stymieing her ability to assimilate the information, and it's also not fun.
No, but when you let them, as long as we're moving forward, however that looks, that's the point. I want to say, let's see, RC Mama, hello. This is amazing. Thank you so much. Will this be available by recording? Yes, it will. I'm going to talk about that in a minute because we are at the end of our time, people. I can't believe this has gone so long. I always love talking to you, Kelly, and having our audience join us. Really quick, tell everyone where they can find out more about you and your products and services.
Okay. You can find out about me on the 90minuteschoolday.com. And then I'm on Instagram at 90minuteschoolday. And I speak regularly on Clubhouse, which is a free app for your phone if you're not familiar with it, they didn't give me enough characters, 90-minute school day. And so I've spoken on different podcasts. Those are on my website. Those are on my Instagram bio account. It gives more information. But the 90-minute school day system is for us as adults because we need to structure our day. And we need it to be rhythm-based so that we can relax and enjoy our kids instead of like if you schedule by the hour, you will overschedule yourself and put demands on your kids that won't work. So you have to schedule by rhythms. I teach a lot about biological rhythms and understanding your own and your kids and how to synchronize those. And then the whole 90-minute school day is just a framework that you can keep in your head. So when you do Lego and cards and you read a book and swing in a tree that day, you can still keep an accounting of the learning that's happening for your governmental agency. And also it's that noticing, right? Because we can see where that is. And then you have a plan that you want to do and you want to learn about a particular subject area or whatever. You want to have buy-in with your kids and ask them what they want to learn. Like invite your kids into the process. Like my daughter's one of them is really into the Titanic. One of them's really into dinosaurs. And then my other one is into birds and getting herself a job. So that invites curiosity that crosses over into the others' areas. And you can do all of that and they can do their own learning and you get to participate with them with 90 minutes. That's it. You really don't need a whole lot of time. You just need a good system and it has to be relationship and joy centered. Like that's what homeschooling is. And the rest of your day is just full of living alongside your family and just, it's great. Or working because you and I both work.
Yes. Yes. All of that. We can talk about this for hours and hours, but I thank you so much, Kelly, for being here. Thanks for the audience joining. Let's see, it looks like someone feels way more confident and not alone. And that is what we are here for. I'm so glad that you're coming away with that takeaway. So again, thanks everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Kelly Edwards from 90-Minute School Day for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom with us. This session will be available for replay on the World Homeschoolers Day YouTube channel later today. That's my goal, if not tomorrow for sure. You can see all the rest of our live events. There's tons of them out there, as well as our interviews. Kelly has one on our YouTube channel as well. And don't forget, the big day is tomorrow, World Homeschoolers Day 2023. Come and celebrate with all the homeschoolers around the world and get in on the giveaways. And Kelly is giving away her signature home education introductory course, the 90-Minute School Day course. She is giving that away to one lucky winner. So come on over to the Instagram and Facebook World Homeschoolers Day pages, and you can join in the fun. So thank you, everyone, again. Thank you, Kelly. And let me get these real quick comments in here to make sure I don't miss. Oh, you're welcome, everyone. I'm so glad. And again, this replay is going to be up most likely later today or tomorrow. So
can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
I forgot to say, so in addition to my course that you can buy all the time, I do group coaching 3 times a year. So my next group coaching, I'm in it now, will be in October. So if you're interested in that, just join my newsletter.
Absolutely. 90minuteschoolday.com. All right. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Have a good day. See you tomorrow.
Hi. Happy Homeschoolers Day.
Bye.